What's going on, everyone? I've got a video for you today that's a bit of a discussion because I want to start doing 3 videos a week again, but I want one of those videos to be like either a discussion or maybe like a product review or something that's less of a photography vlog. So there'll still be 2 photography vlogs a week plus a discussion video. So we're going to discuss photo manipulation on today's video. But first, today's video is sponsored by Squarespace.com. If you're looking for a place to house your travel photography website, blog, or maybe a place to sell some prints, Squarespace has a ton of really beautiful templates that make it really easy to create a professional looking website really quickly. Head to squarespace.com/BrendanVanson and you'll get a discount. It's so easy to make a really cool professional looking website over there. On today's video, I'm actually going to start the video with the end, or at least my answer. And the answer to the question of where is the line on photo manipulation is there isn't one. There is no line in photo manipulation. In fact, go crazy. Do as much photo manipulation as you want. If you want to change the sky or add mating lions or breaching whales to your photos, go freaking crazy. That is your prerogative, that is your choice. But on today's video, I kind of want to use this as a discussion, so feel free to discuss in the comments as to where the line is or if there even is a line. And of course, that line differs from one genre of photography and one style of photography to the other. So I kind of want to discuss all these things in almost a philosophical Socratesian form here, just to kind of, add fuel to the fire. And also to let you guys know that it's okay to manipulate your photo. So actually, let's start this all off by talking about photography as if it was a crime. I'm going to use some of the examples people used as arguments in my sky replacement video to push this discussion forward. And one of the discussion points or arguments somebody made is, Brendan, every single form of manipulation on a photo is digital manipulation. The only true representation of a photo is the flat, raw photo as it comes out of your camera. And that's true. But that's also like saying that the only true representation of a film photo is the negative. That as soon as you develop that photo, it becomes photo manipulated. And that's also true. So I think the reality is there's no way of not having a manipulated photo. So in looking at photo manipulation, I think it's important, once we've decided that every single photo is photo manipulated, is to look at it as if photo manipulation was a crime. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but just for example's sake. For example, crime is bad. Doing things that is illegal is bad, but not all crimes are equal, just like not all photo manipulation is equal. Not every photo manipulation is worthy even of being called photo manipulation, just like every crime isn't necessarily worthy of being called a crime. For example, walking across somebody's lawn might be trespassing. Speeding over 2 kilometers over the speed limit is speeding. Both of those are crimes, but they're not on the same length as like kidnapping somebody. I don't think you can look at photo manipulation as if it's one thing is okay, therefore it's all okay. That's as if saying, if you deem it okay to speed, you're also deeming it okay to kidnap people. It's not how it works. Not all photo manipulations are bad. So where is that line? So we've decided that basically every photo is photo manipulation. I actually want to take it a step further. The simple act of taking a photo is photo manipulation. Let's take this frame for example. The way you're seeing it right now is me sitting, outside in an informal setting. But if we crop it out to the full frame, you'll see it's actually quite ridiculous in that there's a pool and an inflatable, whatever you call this thing, named Pablo. An inflatable peacock named Pablo. The framing is so important, and that in itself is photo manipulation. I'm a political scientist by trade. And I had a professor in university who used to say, politics is like photography. You choose what's in focus and what to put out of focus. You choose what to frame and what not to frame. The simple art of taking a photo and choosing what is in the frame is photo manipulation. It's why if you take photos from two events from two different perspectives, they're totally different. For example, let's use the protests as an example. If you're a protester taking the photos, you're probably taking photos, promoting your idea. Whereas if you're kind of counter the protest, you're taking photos promoting the other idea. And you're using your camera and the frame to choose what to represent. You're manipulating the world, not just the photo. Which is why it's so important for photojournalists not just to be neutral, but to understand their own biases so that every time they frame an image, they can choose what that represents and if that represents a truest example of what's going on. And even then, for the most part, a journalist is trying to capture a story in one image, and simply the art of doing that while leaving out the rest of the frame is photo manipulation. But then now it comes to another part of this line, because we've decided that the simple art of framing a photo is photo manipulation. But what about cropping? For example, if you take a crime that's being committed, and you take the photo like this, but then you digitally crop it to go like this and remove an actual suspect from the frame, that's definitely photo manipulation. But how is that any different than simply taking the photo slightly to the side and leaving that element out to frame, the story the way that you wanted it to be framed? There is no difference, in my opinion. There is a line. And if you're a photojournalist, for example, you can't manipulate your photo in any way, shape, or form. It used to be the case that you could do minor alterations. These days, most respectable press agencies are asking for pure JPEGs. In fact, they're asking their photographers not to shoot RAW at all and just hand them straight JPEGs, because that photo has to be an actual representation of what was seen through the lens at that time. Nothing can be changed or manipulated. But they chose that frame, it's already been manipulated by the photographer. Again, the line's confusing. So we've decided that in photojournalism, while a photo's still manipulated by the photographer, you shouldn't ethically do anything to that photo. But what about commercial work? A lot of the comments in my video about sky replacement was that I need to replace the sky or add things to my images because I'm doing work for a client, and if I don't get the right conditions when I go out and shoot, I'm either going to need to reshoot, or they're just going to hire somebody else because my photos didn't meet their standards. Two examples that were given was a tourism board. Somebody went out and shot for a tourism board and they got dull, boring light the entire time, so they replaced the skies. Made the images more impactful, more attractive to tourists. The other example was real estate. In real estate, nobody wants to buy a home if the skies are overcast and drizzly and look depressing. So this photographer and many photographers replaced the sky with like a bluer sky or a nicer sky to make it look like a more attractive place to live. Commercially, I don't think there's any ethical standards to manipulating a photo like that. In the same way that it's okay to, represent Red Bull as something that gives you wings. It's a commercial thing. It's not editorial. I don't see that as a problem in general. But from an ethical standpoint, here's the line. It's honesty between you and your client. You can't simply change the sky on your photo and hand them to your client and say, that's what I got, because the client might not want to represent it falsely. You have to go to the client, whether it's the tourism board or the real estate buyer, and say, these are the images of the house or destination I've taken. I got really dreary lights. I'm going to give you 3 options. 1, keep the images as they are. 2, reshoot them. Or 3, I can do digital photo manipulation to these photos to give them a different sky or remove some of the elements from the photo that are distracting. And then it's up to the client to make their own ethical decision. You're the photographer, you're the creator. Your job isn't to decide what they do with the images in the end. You just kind of have to be cautious, because if, for example, somebody got sued in the US, for example, it seems like everybody's getting sued for every sort of reasons. You have to be sure that you are covered in your liability. So when you deliver the images to your client, perhaps have a contract formed, a contract signed saying the images I provided were digitally manipulated at the request of the client. That way you're kind of shielded if somebody was to sue the client for, providing an image that wasn't reality, I guess. But again, we're gonna come back to this idea of where's the line. If you take a photo of an interior of a house on a bright day, due to the fact that cameras can't capture a wide range of light, you're gonna get blown out highlights in the windows, whereas your eyes are gonna be able to see the interior and the exterior. But if you were to take an HDR photo, you're probably actually gonna get a better representation of what your eye sees than your camera does. So even though that's photo manipulation, is it not a better representation of what you actually see? The other argument is the lens you use totally changes something. So your eye sees a certain perspective, but if you were to use a 14 or 16 millimeter lens, it captures a wider angle and makes spaces look bigger. You get that real estate space and it makes the rooms look bigger. Or if you use a telephoto in your travel photography, for example, it might make the mountain peaks look bigger than they are, or the location closer to the mountains than they actually are. Both are manipulation in how it's framed, even if they're not digital manipulation. And there's other perspective tricks, like for example, if you photograph a swimming pool, you get low to it and you get wide, and it makes the swimming pool look massive, no matter how small that swimming pool is. So again, the line on photo manipulation is interesting because every form of taking a photo is photo manipulation. So what about printing? Because printing obviously is seen as a form of art. It goes in a gallery. And as the great Serge Ibaka once said, I don't do fashion, I do art.
If you say you put me in the fashion, then we done shit there.
What about scarves? But what about scarves?
So I think that's the line. You have to decide if you do photography or art. Yes, your photography can be your art, but your art can't always be photography. And how you portray it is the line. How honest you are about it is the line. If you say, this is my art gallery, you don't need to explain the process of how you made that. You don't need to tell people, this is photo manipulation, I added elements. You don't have to be honest in any way, shape, or form if you don't want to. That's your art, how you created it, that's up to you. But if you're selling print as photography, it has to be photography. It can't have over-the-top digital manipulation like adding skies, in my opinion at least. So the line is how honest you are. And the example I'm going to use is Peter Lik. You might remember last year Peter Lik came out with his supermoon image, and it caused such a stir in the photography world because it was the supermoon and all these clouds. But some of the clouds were behind the moon, and people lost their mind saying, oh, it's obviously blended images, it's digital manipulation. And yes, absolutely it was. There's no way for clouds to go behind a moon. And I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it was digital manipulation. It was no longer photography, it was art. It was using elements of photography to create art. And I don't know how he sold it, if he sold it as photography or as digital art. Your photography can be art, but your art isn't always photography. Now let me just end this video by saying if it's for fun, it doesn't matter. If you are doing photography for your own joy and your own excitement and your own entertainment, it doesn't matter. Don't listen to what other people, including myself, think about what you do. Do what makes you happy. Do what you think is fun. It doesn't matter if you add skies or mating lions or breaching whales to your photos if it's for you and it's for fun. One of the comments that was constantly made was, not all of us have the opportunity to travel the world. Not all of us have the opportunity even to go out hiking. So if I go hiking 3 hours up a mountain, you're damn right I'm making a photo that has an epic sky, even if it wasn't there. I'm not wasting that hike. I only get to do that every now and then. I get that sentiment. I get that I'm totally, entirely privileged to be able to photograph places like this here in Portugal on a daily basis. I get that I'm privileged enough to be able to say, well, I had crappy light on my trip to Venice, so I'll just come back next year. And don't let people in a place of privilege like myself tell you you can't have fun with photography or digitally manipulate your photos. Go out and do it if that's what makes you happy. The thesis statement of this video is every photo is manipulated. So who am I to tell you where the line is? Who is anyone to tell you where the line is? Go have fun with photography, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.